Welcome, students. Last class we learned about consistency. We gathered our creative elements and learned how to put together a background image, a layering color, and fonts. Then we experimented with mixing and matching these elements across multiple pages. A good takeaway from our consistency lesson was that simple is better. Keeping things very, very simple. Your elements should flow gently from page to page and not look jumpy. Today, by special request, we will have a lesson on fonts and how to use them. So let's jump in. What are fonts? The word font refers to the style of the letters when you type them in on a computer. Computers come with basic fonts. Here are some of the basic fonts that came with my computer. Typography. Fun fact, typography or type are other words for fonts. Typography is the art and science of creating fonts. That's some people's job. So fonts are sometimes called typography or type for short. Font families. Fonts come in a few different families. These families are serif, sans serif, script, and other. The other category can be pretty diverse, including Gothic style fonts, techno fonts, foreign languages such as Chinese or Arabic fonts, and dingbats, which are like little pictures you can type in. For now, let me tell you about the 4 basic font families. First are serif fonts. Serifs are the little tabs on the font. Serif fonts are often used in newspapers, and the serifs, the little tabs, help to create a horizontal line when reading that makes lines of text easier for our eyes to follow along. You may also notice that serif fonts have thin strokes and thick strokes. See on the O how the top and bottom of the O are thinner and the sides of the O are a thicker stroke. This also helps reading as each letter has its own distinct shape. Serif fonts are classic and timeless with a lovely traditional feel. Serif fonts look best in classic black and white colors. Here are some logos that use serif fonts. Next are sans serif fonts. You'll notice that sans serif fonts don't have serifs. They don't have the little tabs. Also, the stroke of each letter is usually the same thickness all around for sans serif fonts. You may have seen sans serif fonts look great as title fonts. You may have seen them in famous logos such as Facebook, Netflix, Google, and Spotify for this reason. And because of their thick and even stroke all around, sans serif often can hold color very well. Next up are script or handwriting fonts. These fonts look like cursive handwriting or printing by hand. These fonts add a lot of personality, but they should be used in moderation. Script fonts are often hard to read at small sizes, so they are best used for titles with a lot of contrast with the background color. The last category of fonts is what I call other fonts. This category is very diverse, and it is beyond the scope of this course, but I encourage you to explore all kinds of fonts for your personal creative needs, and I'll show you where to look for fonts a little bit later in the video. So what do fonts do? Why not just type everything in the same font? Well, when we speak, our personality comes across in how we speak. In the same way, fonts speak, bringing personality and emotion to what we read. For example, fonts can look official, playful, clear and to the point, childlike, elegant, and so on. The personality is the emotional level of the font. For example, take a look at this wedding invitation. The font is a script style that looks great for a wedding. It looks classic and elegant and like a very special event. Here is the same wedding invitation with a childlike handwritten font. See how there are two different personalities? They both feel like totally different events, don't they? Fonts are also kind of like accents. They almost give a different voice to words depending on the font. Like this. Hello. 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 All right. Hello. And so on. I'm not so good at accents, but you get what I mean. Fonts also help us read. This is the more technical level of fonts. Some fonts are technically just easier to read. Fancy fonts are generally harder to read. For example, the wedding invitation. As a general rule, headings can have a somewhat fancier font because there aren't many words, and those words will usually be bigger, making them easier to read. If there are a lot of words, the font should be more basic. Remember, basic is good. How to mix fonts. So, how do we mix fonts? The best way to use fonts for a church slideshow is to start by choosing your easy to read font. Usually when we think of designing things, we choose the title font first, then the subtitle, then the reading font. But when you're making a slideshow for church, do the opposite. Because the easy to read fonts, the font for reading is the most important font because that's the whole reason that you have a slideshow, so people can read it. So first, start by choosing an easy to read font for things that people will be reading, such as a responsive prayer. This font should be very, very, very basic. It's the black pants of any outfit. It goes with everything. And once you've found a good reading font, just stick with it. After a year of doing slideshows for Trinity, I've kept the same reading font at the exact same size. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Next, choose your title font. The title font will be big and will be used for very few words. So you can make this more fancy, special, or unique if you want. But since your titles will be bigger, you can use a fancy font, or if you want it to look more classic, you can use a classic font. So here's what I mean. On the other hand, if you want to make your titles in a special color, then it's often a good idea to keep the font basic. Here's what I mean. Using fonts together. The best way to use fonts together is to use only one of each font family. For example, don't use two serif fonts together. They often clash and don't look good side by side. In the same way, don't use two different scripts together. It often ends up looking really messy. Basically, don't use two fonts from the same family together. Color and fonts. Let's talk about color and fonts. The best color for fonts is black or white, or a shade close to black, such as very, very dark brown or very, very dark inky blue, or a shade close to white, such as cream or ivory. Our eyes, for thousands of years, are used to reading fonts that are black, dark inky blue, or white. It really is best practice to stick to very basic color scheme in your reading fonts. When it comes to title fonts, there is some flexibility, but I would highly suggest, especially as you're just starting out, to be colorful in your image, to be colorful in your layering color, but don't be too colorful in your fonts. Generally, it's hard to do and it's hard to read. Contrast. The second thing to consider in your font color is that there is enough contrast between the font color and the background. This is essential. If you're going to use a green background color, we need to be able to read the text on it, the text being either white or black. Start with these guidelines, and in a few months or even a few years, you can be more creative in your font colors, but your viewers will be happiest with fonts they can read clearly with high contrast on the background. Sizing. Keep your font sizes a consistent size across all your slides in your slideshow. Super easy. I thought I'd teach you about keeping things basic by looking at Oscar fashions. Oscars are coming up soon, and I'm always really inspired by the dresses. And I think the Oscar dresses give a great example of why it's important to keep things basic with a twist and not get carried away with too many colors, textures, shapes, fonts, sizes, and so on. So let's take a look. Here we have a picture of the beautiful, the funny, the charming Whoopi Goldberg. Doesn't she look fantastic with the Oscars? Here she's wearing a basic black dress, a beautiful neckline, these long sleeves, and a dress that goes all the way to the floor. And the twist is there are sparkles or sequins on the dress. It's basic with a twist. Here is another example of Whoopi Goldberg at the Oscars. Oh boy, what is happening here? There's purple, there's lime green, there's turquoise with a print, there's shiny fabric. She's got a deep V with a lot of cleavage, but yet she has a sort of a jacket with a collar. And then the pants are kind of clam diggers and these really big earrings. Oh boy, so many colors, so many textures. There's way too much going on. I think that this was a miss. Basic is best. The same goes with your fonts. If there's too many colors and shapes and textures and shiny and this, that, and the other, it's really distracting and it takes away from just the simple presentation of your slideshow. So take a lesson from Whoopi Goldberg that basic is best, or basic with a twist is best. Here's one other example from the Oscars to prove my point that basic is best. Here is another Hollywood actress who looks absolutely beautiful and fantastic. It's a beautiful pink dress, very simple, but with a twist. The neckline is just a little bit of an angle. There's one strap that's a little different, and there's a little bit of sequin and glitter that makes it a little bit special. It's kind of basic, but with a twist. On the other hand, here's another pink dress. Oh boy, what is going on here? There's a hat. There's a bow under the hat. There's lacy sleeves with this sort of trumpety thing happening. There's another bow on the dress. There's this crisscross bandage thing happening. And then on top of all of that, she's standing on top of an umbrella. Oh boy, there is way too much going on in this dress. So let this be a lesson also for our font and our slideshow choices. Really, basic is best. If there's too many bells and whistles, colors, textures, and all the rest happening, it becomes distracting from the message that you're really trying to tell. So take it from this Oscar dress that basic is best, or basic with a twist is best. Let's talk about your assignment. Your assignment is to create your own font kit, let's call it. Your personal font kit will include a title font, a subtitle font, and a reading font. Gather these on the first page of your slideshow. On that first page, I also want you to decide the size that you will keep consistent for each font throughout your slideshow. So as I mentioned earlier, first find the right size for the reading font. Then, once you have that down, then Play around to find the best proportions for the title and the subtitle. Keep in mind that reading font and your title will never really appear in the same place, in the same slide together. Your title and subtitle will appear in the same slide, and on different slide you will have your subtitle and your reading font. Just something to keep in mind. Next, we'll put this font kit into practice. So we'll create a three-page slideshow based on the text below this video. The first slide will be a title page. For the second and third slide, put the text in the subtitle and your reading font. I want you to choose very carefully and think about your viewers. Keep it basic. Try to learn the rules before you break the rules. In this assignment, do your best. If you need extra help, rewind the video and pause where needed to absorb the information. And be in touch. I'm here for you. In the meantime, be creative, have fun. I look forward to seeing your presentations soon. Bye for now.